Peace, everybody. We were able to donate a little bit over $4,000 to Hurt One to help him after his 11-year-long parole, which came after he got sentenced to prison time for doing graffiti. The previous month, as I'm sure a lot of you know, we donated all of our proceeds over to Charlie the Hustler to help him repay the debt that he owed to the bank, so that way they didn't take away his home from him by repoing his RV. This upcoming month, our donation campaign will be for Bat. Long story short, Bat was out doing his thing, and now he owes some money for legal fees. So that's what all of our proceeds are going to be going to for the month of August. And we're going to be shipping out Bat and Ola zines documenting the graffiti in the summer of 2021 in New York City to everybody who signs up, as well as everybody who's already signed up. So we really just have to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting and helping out, because without y'all, really none of this would be possible to give back to those within our community. So from all of us to you, immense thank you, and enjoy the episode. Peace. Boom. So we're live. Dude, as always, thank you for coming on the show. Marcher Arrant in the house.
Yes, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, so, as always, we're doing our homework on you and all that stuff. And, a lot of people know about what you do, which is just like you walk literally everywhere and
Yep.
to the extremest point you could.
Yeah.
And, but there's like other stuff, right? So you were born to heroin addicted parents who still currently struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
You spent 1 year at a Zen monastery, and you went to a Buddhist university where you studied stuff like Eastern art and Tai Chi.
Yeah.
You have walked the entire length of every single street in Paris and Barcelona and systematically wrote graffiti throughout.
Yep.
And you often can do month-long trips where you end up walking over 600 miles. Some walks that you've done are Paris to Spain. You walk the entire length of the Pyrenees Mountains in Spain from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. You walked the Camino de Santiago. You walked the entire coast of Catalonia, and you spent 10 years of your life totally drunk. Right.
Yeah,
so
you're actually right. Yes.
So there's all of that, right? And then I found this quote that you said in one of your Instagram captions that I'm gonna read to just start this off.
Please.
And that's you had a piece and it said Marcher Arrant left home and vowed to never return. I'm motherfucking back. The past few weeks I've gone through absolutely the most difficult time of my life. The worst depression and desire to die and hopelessness I have ever had. The worst bipolar I've ever had. My mind and feelings going back and forth over and over to where I couldn't keep any decision or plan of action, because the next minute everything in me would change, and whatever plan seemed like the best idea ever 100% seemed like the worst idea ever and meaningless or harmful. My mind was overanalyzing everything, and I could not find any reality or anything stable. At one point my brain short-circuited and went blank, and I had absolutely no identity or persona or any thoughts, which was actually really nice, but I knew it came from something unhealthy. I felt so trapped by compulsive behaviors and my addictions, like I can't live without them, like I've been in them so long and the rut so deep I could never leave. The quote-unquote home I spoke about leaving in the picture one is the metaphorical home of my addictions and compulsions and neurosis. I vowed to never go back. This internal walk is the hardest walk I've ever done. I made a mantra for myself that I combined with my breathing and footsteps to aid me in keeping on away from this hellish cycle that I've been in my whole life. And the mantra being March 4th, Eternal Dawn. The first part is obvious. The Eternal Dawn part is meant to help me not think that I know what awaits. Help me not believe the dark interpretation of my wounded mind. When I leave my compulsions, I get the worst anxiety, insecurity, and have the most depressed outlook ever. And that's what always makes me go back to my compulsions. By thinking of the dawn, it's a way for me to not believe that these thoughts are the way things are, and have the courage to keep on past them, because who knows what the next moment will bring. This journey is almost literally a walk for me, the way I view it. The bad states are bad days on the trail, hard terrain, or bad weather. I just need to keep on and never turn back. My thought is that if I keep on long enough, I will develop new habits and my brain will start to transform. And you're talking about a walk. You walk physically, but then you talk about the internal walk.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I guess a good question, a good place to start off is, you were born to heroin addicted parents. What was your family upbringing like? What was your early life like, and that shaped your ripe mind?
Yeah. So my parents were addicted to heroin, and up until I was about 5 years old, and it it really traumatized me. And I have this. I think it relates to my walking because I really went internal. Like they used to. It was always like this cute thing with like I always used to play with my hair and like zone out. And what I've realized, and like my family's like, oh, that's so cute. He's playing with his hair again and this and that. But what I'm realizing now is that I was like going in, you know, when you zone out and you like everything becomes blurry and you're just like in like daydreaming, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like so addicted to that. Like it's weird because I'm like a vegetable when I do it, and I've just always reverted to that. And I think it was all because the addiction and stuff is like one thing with the parents, but it's like all the chaos that revolves around that, you know, like crazy fights and like seeing my parents get arrested. And like I remember one time my dad had like locked my mom out of the house, and then my mom threw a chair through the window, you know, and I was like 5. So like all that stuff traumatized me, and I swear to God I have PTSD, but I've never like seen a psychologist or anything. But yeah, it's just really traumatizing, and there's a lot of shame around it, you know, like your parents are addicts. It's like it's super shameful, and it just like fucks with my head, like having both of them be addicts, because I'm like, is there any possibility I could get out of it? Like with both of my parents doing that, like, and both of them relapsing later in life, and like it just fucks with my head. And it's weird to like have your parents who are supposed to be your role models like be not healthy,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it's really kind of nowadays I'm trying to take a positive outlook towards it, like, because I kind of like it in a weird way because it made me different, you know what I mean? I'm trying to like think of it like that. And it's weird, like sometimes you see people whose parents were addicts and they're like very strong people, and that didn't really happen with me. I just kind of went internal, and kind of my solution was escape, you know what I mean? And that's kind of where my walking came from, you know, like just trying to get out of the house, trying to get away from, you know, all the chaos, and just not dealing with this stuff. So yeah, but I'm super, like, I don't want to throw my parents under the bus because they're really freaking awesome actually, and super loving, and like I was never abused, or it was just a matter of chaos and like neglect and whatnot. But they're super loving and supportive, and they cleaned up for like the longest time. My mom was clean from like the time I was like 5 until I was like 15, you know. And she had my brother, and like I don't know, she said that like the hospital like gave her some drug to help the birth, and then that like re-kicked in her addiction and stuff. But that was depressing. And my dad got clean for a really long time, and he like recently in the past like 5 years like started back up and stuff. And I don't know, it's just a nightmare. That stuff is just so depressing. But yeah, I think it's like has a lot to do with my walking, just trying to escape, you know, trying to escape my own demons. You know, it's not necessarily a healthy way to do it, but
How do you think, because, you know, parents, especially both parents being addicted to heroin of all things, like some are alcohol, so you hear about like alcoholism, you hear about like just general substance abuse and stuff like that, but like heroin is known to be like the one that you don't want to be addicted to. Like the one where you hear your friends doing it, you're like, or that anyone's doing it, you're like, well, now it's clipped. Now it's really over. When you like as a person growing up in this environment, how do you think that affected your view of the world? Like, for example, for me, I'm like, you know, my parents never did any kind of substances, and it's like almost like my little kid life is like a giant fairy tale, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like, as long as there's not anything that crazy, like everything seems normalized to me. Like, did that seem normalized to you?
It did, you know, and I really, I was always in denial because my parents were like really good actually. Like they educated me from the very beginning. Like I grew up in the AA community, and you know, I was always going to the meetings with them. There's like the little kids room and everything, and they always told me like you have like it's very likely like you will get addicted if you ever do anything, you know. And they were trying to really educate me about that and everything. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, for the longest time I was like in denial that it affected me. But as I got older, I just like look at myself compared to other people, and I'm just like, just have all these compulsive behaviors, and I've struggled with addiction, but I'm just like so different than everyone around me. Like, so I had to like accept it. And then it's been this like, then once I accepted it, it's been this struggle to not be a victim, you know what I mean? And not like be like, woe is me, and just allow that to allow me to go down like a bad path, or use it as an excuse. Yeah. So that's been a struggle. But yeah, I don't know. I've always had this fascination with like the dark sides of life, you know, because another thing too is like both my parents have hepatitis C, and they got it from sharing needles, and like they told me that at a pretty young age. So at a young age, I was like thinking about death and all this stuff, and like I was like obsessed with it, and I still am. Like I think about it every day, like, and I'm just terrified of it. And like I remember like I had unprotected sex when I was 16, and like I was like, for years until I was like 22, I finally got tested, but I was just like so paranoid that I had AIDS, and like, yeah, just this weird obsession with the, you know, dark side of life. And yeah.
How do you think that transpired into you getting into walking the way you are, or just graffiti as a whole? Like which one came first, graffiti or walking?
Walking did. Yeah. Walking came first, and that was like another thing. I don't know, I'm trying to look at the good side and everything, and I think it does all relate to like my upbringing and whatnot. But like from a very young age, I was like into walking like more than anyone around me. Like it was like this weird thing, and it became my identity like very early on. You know, I think part of it was, I think, you know, it was trying to get out of the house. I wanted to get out of the house as much as I could, because that was chaos. And like I remember like in middle school even, I would like wake up, you know, when the sun rose, and just like get out of the house. And I wanted to get out. I would go out of the house and not come back until like the absolute latest time that I had to be back home. And yeah, I just fell in love with that. And because my walking, a lot of it comes from a hatred of time. Like I hate time. It depresses the hell out of me. I hate death. I hate all that. But like if you go out of the house like really early, then you have the entire day ahead of you, you know? And I'm just in love with that feeling, you know, because I'll start to think about time, like even if I have to be home at like in 4 hours, like that last 4 hours is like already depressing. It's like already like I'm depressed. I'm like, well, damn, the day's over. I'm already having to look at the clock, you know? But if I go out of the house like super early, then I don't have to think about time for the longest time. And then when I do big trips, you know, I don't have to think about time forever, you know?
So the walking is like essentially an escape.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
at least started as an escape.
Big time.
And you know what it is too? It's like, it's kind of crazy to hear about that. Like, oh, I got really into walking, because essentially like walking is something that pretty much almost everybody does. Yeah. Unless you just don't have any legs, you know, like you walk. So that's almost like, it's like being into something that everyone does, but to an extreme level. That's like similar to me saying, not similar, but like in a way similar to me saying, I'm like really into blinking.
Yes.
But it's like, what do you mean you're into blinking? Yes. Like everybody blinks, like, you know what I mean? But then it's like, perfect. It has a whole different like aspect to it, because walking is traveling, walking is a form of meditation. Like there straight up are different methods of walking. And like, I don't care what anyone says. Like I myself, like I'll walk to the train from here, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll walk and I'll notice the mindset I was in when I started walking to the train was one of like, let's hurry the fuck up and get on with this shit. And like, I need to get on this train to get to my destination as quick as possible. And that walk is not only not positive, but like if anything negative. Like I'm not having a good time, and I'm like low key, my mind is racing. Whereas like sometimes I'll walk straight up just like pacing. And it's like I'm walking, like my legs, like what is the definition of walking, right? My legs are moving, but my mind is in so much more peace, and I'm like seeing the beauty in everything. Mm-hmm.
I was talking to our friend Jordan, and I was telling him how you plan to go to Maine after this.
Mm-hmm.
Yo,
Yep.
I think that's the most amazing thing ever. Because, like, me personally, I'm like, oh, I'll just go to Brooklyn later, and it'll take, like, an hour to get there, and then, like, I have a whole day ahead of me and stuff. But, yo, if my plan was to just walk to Maine after this podcast, I'm like, yo, life is so free right now. Like, that's a whole journey. I'm going to be a completely different person when I get there. I'm going to experience amazing things. And then I'll do that. When I get to Maine, I'm going to walk somewhere else and somewhere else, somewhere else. Dude, I respect it so much.
Yeah.
I was telling Angel a while ago how, like, hate is a strong word, but, like, the fact that I know where I'll be tomorrow or a week after today or a month after today, like, I know the exact place I'll be at an exact time. It's like, it's not depressing, but it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to know. Like, the unknown is so beautiful in a way.
Yes.
And I truly respect what you're doing. And talking about the walking, I was going to ask you, how do you get to these places? Like, do you GPS? Like, how do you know where to go?
Yeah, I use Google Maps. I often use like a guidebook. That's my favorite thing. Like, because some of the things I've done like are trails, you know, and they're marked pretty good. But I'll have a guidebook. I like having something physical because then I don't have to stress as much about like battery life. Like, that's a constant stress. Fucking battery life. Damn it! I wish I plugged my shit in before this actually. But yeah. So yeah, paper maps, GPS, and yeah, that's how I do it. But I felt so much what you were saying about like not having to be somewhere. Like, that's one of the main impetuses. Is that the right word? For like my walking is like hating that. Like, hating. I don't know what it is. Like, I just never grew up. Like, my favorite movie since I was a kid was like Goonies, and I just love movies in general. And I always wanted my life to be like a movie, but it's so hard to have your life be like a movie when you have everything structured, like all the time things and everything. And I just have this like innate sense that like life should be crazy and like magical and like,
at least at the very least, like interesting.
yeah, exactly. Because I'm
not
like
so mundane every day, day after day.
Yes.
You know what it is? It's like so hard with the way our society is set up for anyone to do that without ill sacrifices. Like what you do, there is some ill sacrifices.
Big time.
Maybe like they're less to you than they would be to another person just because of like your personality or how you grew up. But like there's some ill ass, like you were sleeping on in between bushes on the Upper West Side, and I'm sure to you like that's probably sick, right? But like I'm sure to a lot of other people they'd be like, yo, this is actual hell on earth.
Yeah. No, there's so many sacrifices. I mean, I'm basically sacrificing my future, you know, and it's getting harder the older I get, because I turned 40, and like I'm pretty good at being delusional and like, I don't know, not thinking about the tomorrow. But you know, when I turned 18, I felt like I was old, you know, and like my 20s and 30s, it all felt the same. I was like, But when I turned 40, that was like that was a wake-up call, you know, and I've just spent all my life not thinking about the future, and now it's getting scary. It's like, what happens if I get sick? You know what I mean? I have no savings. Like, I've never gone to the doctor. I've never gone to the dentist, you know, like it's stressing me out. And I'm trying to think about ways to find a middle way. You know, if I could do it all over again, I would like be a little bit smarter about it and more balanced, I think. But whatever, it's been cool. But yeah, there's lots of sacrifices. It's crazy.
So when you're walking and doing these things, what do you, for example, well, actually before that, so where do you even permanently live anywhere?
Yeah, I do. I permanently, like I lived in Paris for 5 years, lived in Barcelona for 5 years, and then when I came back, I've been kind of going back and forth. Like, I've been staying with my family, I've been staying with my friends. So I always kind of have a home base to an extent, but there's no like straight up solid home base, you know what I mean? But like,
does that bother you, or it doesn't really matter to you?
It does. I like it since I do kind of have a home base most of the time. I like that, you know. I think I could never just like be constantly on the move, you know, because, well, I just don't like that. Like, I like having kind of a center. I like getting to know one place really well because I think a lot of times people think that I'm just like constantly going off in like one direction all the time, and that's not the case. Like, I do many different kinds of walking. Sometimes I'm just like walking in one area, exploring that in depth, and then I go off onto like a long walk, you know, in one line. But I like having. I think like I could never just go off forever in one line, because I like to. It's kind of like how do I say it? I just like to get intimate with places, you know what I mean? And, you know, learn that place, feel that context, and then explore from there. Yeah. I'd rather do that than, like, I'd rather learn a few places very deeply than learn, like, a lot of places, like, superficially, you know?
Are you against, like, cars? Are you against like
man.
Are you against the like industrial machine?
I'm against cars. Well, I'm not gonna be like fucking a hypocrite and stuff. Like, I use cars sometimes. I haven't had a car since I was like 19. So, but I mean, you know, I get benefits from cars, and you know, I borrow
So maybe it's
cars.
maybe it's not you like against cars in and of themselves, but maybe like owning a car for this just the sake of like over the top comfort, when you could actually get by depending on where you live without it for like pretty fairly easily. You just don't own a car, which is like the norm, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, cars just piss me off because I'm always walking on the roads, you know, and they're loud, and you know, the exhaust and everything, and
the power that like someone in a car has as opposed to someone walking.
Big time. It freaks me out. And like, I don't know, people fuck with you. I feel like cars, like drivers were like the original like trolls, because like you can honk and say fuck you with no consequences, you know what I mean?
Like if you honk and say fuck you and you're in a car, but you don't do that when someone like accidentally steps on the back of your shoe walking in day-to-day life.
Exactly.
And that means that you're picking your battles like almost in a bully-like fashion.
Yes.
Maybe you're doing it subconsciously, just because like subconsciously like that barrier is there and you can drive away. So maybe it's not like you're doing it like that, but that is what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I've suffered so much abuse from drivers. I mean, like ridiculous amount of abuse. And this is a random fact, but like 2 of my sisters died from cars. Like, you know, my first one, Kelly, she was like my full sister, my only full sibling. When she was 18, she was in a car coming home from a party, and they were all drunk. The driver was drunk. But on top of being drunk, he was 18, and he was like racing around and, you know, being dumb. And like all 3 of those kids died. And then like 10 years later, my stepsister, she was riding her bike and she got hit by a drunk driver, you know? So yeah, it's really crazy. I have this hatred towards cars, like big time. And actually I'm going to write a book about it. I want to do this kind of a graphic novel about a guy named Marcher Arrant who it's all related to like my life and everything. And because it's really interesting, like my dad's a mechanic, and then my stepdad is a car salesman. So like all this car stuff is like in my life. And then this woman that I worked for in Barcelona, she's a really high up person in Seat, the car company.
Okay.
It's a Spanish car company. And so I want to make this story about like this guy, Marcher Arrant, who like he slowly goes crazy and then like he's walking all the time, and like people are throwing shit at him and yelling shit at him all the time, and then this stuff happens with his sisters and this and that. He finally goes crazy and he becomes like an anti-car vigilante, and he's not necessarily like a good guy, you know. He's a crazy dude, and he just goes off like sabotaging cars and everything. And I want to do this so that I don't do that in sublimation, like so I don't actually do these things in my real life. Because one time I was walking in Italy, and I snapped, man. I was like, there was a blinking yellow light, so I was like, you know, I didn't have to rush. This truck was coming. I wasn't being passive aggressive. I wasn't like walking extra slow, but I was just walking. I'm like, he's got to yield to me. And I was drinking a big bottle of grappa. It's like a really strong Italian liquor, and he just slammed on his freaking horn, and I just lost it, dude. I took and I was an alcoholic, like hardcore, like I would never waste alcohol usually, but I was just so enraged that I just threw it at him. It was one of the best moments of my life. It was like one of the only times I've actually like done anything, because usually I don't do anything and I just think about what I should have done. And he just slammed on his brakes. It was crazy. He was like, "Arr!" And I ran off into the woods like a little punk. But it was, I don't agree with that. I shouldn't have done it. But
So when you're on these trips, for example, what do you eat?
yeah, eat. That's a good question. People always ask me that. This trip I'm on now has been really cool because it was the first time I ever cooked, you know? So I got a jet boil, and I pretty much just started doing like...
What's a jet boil?
A jet boil is like a little gas stove, little hiking gas stove. And
You just fit it in a backpack?
Yeah.
And batteries?
No batteries. It just has... So it's just basically like a cylinder, and then it has like you can screw in a little gas canister like into the bottom, and then you just open up the gas, you light it, and then it just cooks things. And then so that was the first time I ever did that. I always thought, oh, that sounds too involved, or but it's been a pretty fun experience. So I really picked up from like being on the Appalachian Trail, like what hiking people eat. And there's like typical things, ramen sounds funny, but ramen's one of them, which is super cheap and awesome. And these like instant mashed potatoes is like a popular thing. And then there's like these Knorr, like Knorr.
Nori. Or no?
No, I think it's just Knorr.
Okay.
Knorr maybe. But you see them at like any supermarket and everything. They're just like little packets of, they're like soups basically. And you cook them really quick, and they're like dirt cheap. There's like fettuccine Alfredo, minestrone, stuff like that. So got really into those. And
how much of it do you carry on your back?
Well, now, and this is why I'm so happy like doing what I'm doing now, because I did that. I started doing the Appalachian Trail, and that was like a way for me to try something new and to push myself, because most of my like big like long distance walking was done in Europe, and there you're like always going through a town, like at least once a day, but often like 3 towns a day. If you walk like 12 hours a day, you'll go through like 3 towns. And that's my favorite way to walk, because you don't have to think about anything, but I wanted to try the Appalachian Trail just to like try something different and to test myself and stuff. And it was really cool and fun, but it's actually not my style, because you have to carry like 5 days worth of food, and that's a lot of weight. It's a lot of thinking, and and I'm not good at that. I just like to not think. Like my walking is like really to just not think, to just bliss out and just like have a good time, But yeah, you got to be more organized when you're doing stuff like that. So yeah, I would carry like 5 days worth of food, and I mean that's fun. Like I totally get why people. That's kind of fun thing in its own way to like figure out just how much you need. It's a fun challenge, and so I'm glad I did it. But so now I'm just doing road walking, so I'm not having to think at all. And my last stretch, well, the stretch from New York City to like. I went from New York City up to like Yonkers, and then like started heading like east on the Boston Post Road. That was like ideal, like going through Connecticut, because it was like town after town after town. I mean, there was literally no gaps between the towns. It was like each town sprawled into the next. So there's just like always a gas station, like don't have to think at all. So it's just like pure fun,
Do you ever meet other people like while you're walking that are like you? 'Cause what I like to do is not walk, but I take my motorcycle sometimes and just randomly go like to other states and just venture off, like camp in the woods and stuff, like alone. And I'll run into people. Like one time I ran into this dude, and I was on the way to Montreal from here, and dude, the back of his bike was like packed like 10 feet tall. I was like, dude, where are you coming from? And we were like in like upstate New York, and he's like, oh, I just came from California on his motorcycle. I was
Oh,
like, yo, that's
shit.
fucking crazy.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, have you ever met anyone like on a journey like you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. That motorcycle like traveling.
Wish I
It's
could
like
do it
Easy
more,
Rider
but
shit.
yeah. No, yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, meet people. I mean, it depends on the trail. Like, so like I did like the Camino de Santiago, and that's like a very popular trail. I mean, you can't get away from people on that, which I didn't necessarily mind, but so like for an entire like month, well, actually I just did that for 2 weeks. It's usually a month-long trip, but I had to do it really quick because of money and all this stuff. But I mean, you're seeing like probably at least 20 people a day that are doing that trail, you know. And then like the Appalachian Trail is really popular. I was seeing people all the time, you know. But besides those kind of like, because I've done a lot of trails that aren't popular trails, and rarely meet people on those ones that are doing it. And I wish I would, because I feel like they would be, I don't know, there's something about the Camino and the Appalachian Trail. You get the like kind of professional kind of walkers, which is awesome. But I don't know. I would like to meet like just kind of another weirdo drifter type of dude. And I don't meet those too often. But I also meet like bikers a lot, you know, like bicyclists. And, you know, it's a different mode of transport, but I always feel like a camaraderie with them. You know, they got the saddlebags, and yeah, I love meeting people. I mean, it's really special.
Yeah, especially on those walks, because there is an element of straight up solitude that has to do with those walks. And
for real.
In one of your captions, you talked about how you know, sometimes when you're on those walks for a while, you like crave other people.
Yes.
And you crave like interactions because it becomes too much. And like Seneca also talked about that. He talked about like, you know, pretty much the balance between solitude and socialization, and how like one of the you need both of them, and one of them will always bring you back to the other one. But like I feel like a lot of people who are like really in solitude straight up are really in solitude, like they don't have at all. And then other people who are really in socialization are really in socialization, like they have there are a lot of people who cannot be solo, like on some like really won't even want to walk to the store without you. And it's actually, you know what I mean? And like that's not good either. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think about it often. Like one time I did in one of my flags, I wrote Marcher Arrant, a loner with friends, or something like that. And you know, I've always been kind of a loner, but what you said like about being on these trips and stuff, like it's so true. I remember I did this walk from Paris to Spain, and I mean, nobody does that walk. Like I saw like 3 people in a month. And when I got to the end, so I was like ending at, what's it called? Damn it. It's the traditional starting place for the Camino, like the Camino Frances, like the most popular, because there's actually many Caminos, but this is the most popular one. Damn it. Anyways, I'll think of it later. But anyways, I ended where everyone else starts. So I got into this town, and there was all these pilgrims, as they call them, you know, pèlerins in French. And I was sitting at a restaurant, and there was an American couple, because there's like people from all over the world that do that trail. And there was an American couple. I was just so desperate to like talk to somebody in my own language. And I'm like super insecure person, but I went up to their table. I was like, hey, I'm feeling kind of lonely. Can I talk with you guys? It was just like amazing. Like that's how freaking lonely I was, to like break those boundaries. And they were super sweet. And so, I realized like I'm not actually a loner. Like I think a lot of my lonerism comes from kind of my fucked up shit from my childhood, and like insecurities from that. And I think that if I had a healthy childhood, I wouldn't be a loner at all. I think it's just there's so many insecurities that I have to deal with when I interact with people, that it's just easier to not deal with that stuff, you know?
To be honest, I honestly think that, like I just thought of this now, I honestly think that being a loner to like an extreme level is just straight up disability. And I thought about it like in terms of like just evolution and how like we literally are very weak species and we can't survive without each other. And we can, I guess, now with this like comfort of modern industrialization and technology. Like I don't need anyone to get my food. Like I could just work in silence alone and like I can get my food and all that. But like realistically, I would have, if I like didn't have the ability to speak on that level with other people and make strong ties, like the one who would survive would be the person who's speaking to everyone that everybody likes because he has the most hookups or she has the most ability to just get help from whoever. And it's just so many, you know, interactions like that. I don't think that being like being like in solitude is a bad thing, but I definitely think it's not a good thing if you don't have the actual ability to like talk on that level. There's like a level you wouldn't survive on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. And my kind of goal is to get more healthy and to socialize more, and it just makes life richer, you know. Like I'm glad that I've gotten out of this old mentality because it's easier for me to just be like I'm a loner and that's cool and you know this romantic idea, but like a lot of it just comes from this neurosis and all this fucked up shit. So it's been a path for me to like just break out of my shell and get over my shit. But yeah, I agree with you. I've read things about like anarchism and stuff and talking about how working together is, you know, that's how you thrive and everything.
You'll literally go insane if you're put in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Like you will go crazy. And then not only that, but like just talking about you, like you just said, which I think is super interesting, that you could just do what's easy for you and just like go back to your like loner shell. And I know you fuck with Nietzsche a lot, and something that he says is like everyone's philosophy is just like there's like way of protecting themselves, like to like live out their own aims. So like maybe saying like solitude is the true reality, or like some crazy philosophy like that would sound like you just said, like so nice. That could just be your way of protecting your like like unconsciously, like you're like fucking Dantian protecting itself, like you know what I mean, like since you know that that's you and you have the hardest time dealing with others, which like I'm at fault in as well. You'd be like, well, that's because everyone else is, you know what I mean, this, and I'm not, I'm this, and like I'm the only, and you're just, your philosophy is just protecting yourself.
Yes.
But in reality, like that's all it was. Like that was just, it's like a nice little like facade of an excuse.
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about that way, because then at that point, like you don't even know what the fuck is real.
I know, dude. That's crazy. You hit the nail on the head with that about Nietzsche. That's exactly what he's talking about a lot. Is just like how people are self-creating themselves with their own like little weaknesses or whatever. You know. Yes, exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm working on it.
So what's in your back? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention one more thing about the solitary thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that film or read the book Into the Wild, where the guy goes into Alaska, like leaves society to be completely alone, and then when he realizes like fuck, I should go back, like chill with people, he can't like cross the river and he's stuck there. And then like he just starves and like dies, and the last thing he writes after like being alone for so long, after wanting to be alone for so long, he's like, happiness is only real when shared.
Whoa.
And that's it. And he fucking died. And the last thing he wanted to do was be with people, but the only thing he thought he wanted to do was be completely alone. So it's just interesting.
Whoa, that is. Holy shit. I saw that movie, but that's so pertinent to what we're talking about. And it's I've been thinking about this topic so much. Like there's all these cliches about like, you know, life's all about your friends and family, and I've just been having the worst depression lately, and like I wake up in the middle of the night thinking the worst thoughts, but I always think like that is the answer, like friends and family and having good relationships, like it's really real, like that's what makes life meaningful. It really does. Like, and you know, I'm glad I'm realizing that, because you know, I could have let my like neurosis and whatnot like totally control me. Like I wanted to be a monk. I really idolized hermits for the longest time. Like Bodhidharma, he was like living in a cave for like 10 years, you know. I was like, he's so cool, you know. And I think maybe that could be cool, like really for certain people, but I know for me, it was just a way to escape my issues. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. I think about that all the time, because like, I kind of grew up to an extent like idolizing him, like Damo and people like that. Yeah. And like then I read some crazy shit, and then I realized, like, well, maybe they're just literally too weak to deal with, like, society's everyday problems.
Yep.
Not that they are, but I'm saying, like, that is not an impossibility. Like,
Yeah.
and someone wrote a critique on that, and it's like, it was talking about how, like, these, like, to even want to do that is because, like, you literally can't, like, to you, like, to someone else, this problem would be something that they could, like, push through and overcome. And to the person who, like, goes into the hermitage seclusion, it's, like, a problem that literally so can't be overcome, or that, like, is so groundbreaking to them, like, ground shaking to them, that they have to fucking do the most extreme thing, which is, like, it's over. Like, not only, like, goodbye to the bad, but also goodbye to, like, all of my best friends, to, like, my family, and also like, true hermits who live in the straight up, like, mountains. Goodbye to, like, supermarket and eating anything that isn't rainwater or pine needles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a extreme thing. You gotta think, like, is this person enlightened, or, like, has this idea just been put into my head through, like, crazy texts? I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's interesting when you start thinking about that stuff, because I used to be, like, really religious and everything, and I would just take everything as, like, these people are awesome. And then once you start, like, actually kind of starting to, like, not criticize, but, you know, think about other options, you know, it's freaky, because, like, forever I was just like, these people are, like, amazing, and this is the way, and you're like, who knows, maybe these people were mentally ill, or
Maybe they were mentally ill.
yeah, exactly.
Like, literally, maybe.
Yeah,
Like, that's what I'm saying, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to disrespect whatsoever.
No, absolutely
I have,
not.
like, nothing but respect.
I
in
have
that.
so much reverence
Yeah.
for everything.
but realistically, like, I'm sure, all right, maybe not all of them are mentally ill, but out of, let's say there's, like, 800 hermits, like, real deal hermits.
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be, like, 400 mentally insane ones that, like, will snap if, like, anything happens. You know what I mean? There's no way all 800 of them are enlightened. Like, there's
Yeah.
at least 200, like, psychopaths.
Yeah, totally.
If not, like, more than 200. Like, probably more than 200.
Yep. I know. Damn it, I miss when I just thought, oh, man. I miss my, I don't know,
But I mean, like,
childhood.
you, like, seeing as, like, you studied, like, all the Eastern stuff, and, you know, like, Siddhartha, like, Buddha was saying how, like, he tried the extreme of renunciation, and it didn't increase his ability to open his eyes to, and, like, wake up, and whatever you want to call it, like, freedom, nirvana. And, you know, that's kind of it right there. Like, not that he's God or anything, but it's true. Like, I truly think that, like, it's kind of like just like a overemphasis of, like, everything in moderation, like some sort of middle path. Forcing it on either side, like, it's not going to do nothing for you. But, like, speaking of Buddha, like, how did you get into, like, graffiti and stuff?
Graffiti. Oh, man. Okay, so I got into graffiti. I got into graffiti when I was, like, in 5th or 6th grade. There was, like, graffiti around my town and my little suburb, and I was just interested in it. And I had this friend who was older. He was, like, in high school, and, like, I was, like, really into skateboarding. Like, I wanted to be a professional skater and everything. And I met this dude, and, like, since I was good at skating, like, the older guys were willing to hang out with me because I was, like, better than most of them. And so I had, these older friends and everything. And this one friend, his name was Nick. He was, like, I looked up to him so much. He was, like, a super good skater. And one day I asked him, like, I just had a feeling he knew, like, because a lot of the graffiti said BSA. And I was like, do you know what BSA is? He was like, yeah, I'm into it. I'm in that crew. And he like, schooled me all about graffiti. It was so cool. He, like, gave me the best initiation. Like, he took me to the hardware store, racked the paint, and then he took me to a little spot to paint, and, like, showed me, you know, how to do throw up and everything. And that's how I got into it. And then like, Columbus has some really good writers, like, back in the 90s and, like, early 2000s. Like, it's pretty interesting because they have a really strong hand style tradition, which I think is, like, kind of rare, like, in towns outside of, like, big towns to, like, have a focus on hand styles. But they really, had a super focus on hand styles. And so I just got crazy into it. And then but then I would keep getting busted by my mom, and she would take my board away, and that was, like, the most important thing for me ever.
Like, ever?
ever. Skateboarding was like, now how my obsession is walking. I always have some obsession. Like I just need to. It's some pathology, I guess. But back then it was skateboarding. I mean, literally, it's all I thought about. It's all I did, like 24/7. You know, for like 10 years, from like 10 to like 20, is all I did. And yeah, I really wanted to be pro. And then like my mom would bust me, like, you know, painting, and then she would like lock my board up in a cabinet, you know, when she busted. And she would like listen to my, it was crazy. She had a recording device like on the phone, like she got from like Radio Shack, and she like recorded my friends and I talking about graffiti, and she would like search my bag when I came in and out, and every time she found shit, she would take my board away. So I quit, you know. Back then I quit at like, I don't know, freaking like 16 or something. But I mean, I always carried a marker. I was a toy. I never got anywhere past the toy phase, you know. I'm still in the toy phase. But back then, like, yeah, I never went anywhere with it. But I had such a love for it and obsession. Even when I wasn't doing it, I was just like always, you know, looking at magazines, talking about it, you know. And yeah, so I've been obsessed with it for the longest time, even when I wasn't doing it. And then when I was in Paris, I was walking on the streets near, how do you say it? D'Enfer Rochechouart? D'Enfer Rochechouart. I don't know. It's a metro stop there in Paris. And I was taking photos of like some Horfé. You know Horfé?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some Horfé graffiti and shit. And this dude like came up to me and he was like, "Excusez-moi, je ne parle pas français." It was like, "Excuse me, I don't speak French." And I was like, "I don't either." And it was freaking Curve, you know, Curve TGE. Yeah, man. And we just started talking and everything, and we became homies, dude. And like that day, it was fucking crazy, cause like I you know, I was aware of his stuff. Actually, like I had a magazine with him in it. I can't remember what magazine it was, but like I think it was Mass Appeal or something. I had like an interview with him in it, and but I didn't really actually realize it was like the Curve when I met him. Like I was like projecting him, like, oh, it's another toy like me, like kind of saying he writes and whatnot. But like, so when we met, then we started hanging out that day, and I was like, yo, I know this like abandoned railroad track we should go check out. And it's this track called the Petit Sentier, like it means small belt. And it's an abandoned railroad track that goes around Paris, and it's fucking a really, really cool area. But like we jumped down into there, and like we went through like all these like crazy tunnels. Like some of these tunnels are so long that you don't even see the light at the end of them when you enter, and it's just like graffiti everywhere. So like the first time we met, we just like went into this crazy adventure together, and it was such a trip. And then he was living there too, you know, at the time, and like we became friends and stuff. And you know, and I started painting with him, and he was just like super encouraging. And you know, I was a complete and utter beginner, you know, complete and utter toy, but like he was super nice to me and like really fucking encouraging. And man, I really respect him for that, because like, you know, he was hanging out with all, you know, he had a million people to hang out with. Like he was hanging out with freaking Horfé and Seo and Tomac. Like he had a million connections, you know, there, but he was like down to chill with me, even though I was like a complete nobody, you know. And it was through him that like I just give credit to him for everything. That like kind of my graffiti and my walking is like, that's my passion, that's my life mission at this point, you know. And I contributed it all to him, really, because first of all, he was like inspiring me, just seeing him like, you know, creating all the time, and just like he's always doodling, and you know, and yeah, I mean, he's just amazing. And then his encouragement towards me, like he was always pushing me to like, because you know, I always wanted to be like a traditional writer, you know, and I was always like trying to hint to him like, yo, give me these like traditional letters and like this and that. And like every time I did like something, he was like, he would point out like the unique things that weren't even traditional or whatnot, and trying to encourage me like, yo, that's your unique thing, you should go with that, you know. And then it just, from that like advice, you know, that's what grew into like me figuring out this weird like idiosyncratic graffiti, you know, just have somebody that's like, he's so steeped in tradition. To me, he's like the perfect writer because he's like steeped in tradition, but then he grew out of that and he's like crazy, not traditional. Like he's crazy experimental at the same time, you know?
Insanely creative.
Insanely creative.
Like insanely.
Yes, exactly. And to have somebody that was like just such an OG, like pushing me to do my own thing, you know, that gave me so much encouragement and everything. And it was really just like one thing led to another after that, you know? So,
well, that's amazing. That's an amazing, introduction to graffiti story.
For real.
And now it's, it's funny because it just goes, it's like such a hand-in-hand thing with your previous hobby, which was walking. You're lurking.
Yeah.
You're just lurking.
Yep.
And you're lurking like across different states, across different countries, and you have mad free time because of your way of life.
Yeah.
And just like doesn't even matter. So then like that with graffiti, it's like perfect.
Dude, it was perfect because like adding graffiti to the walking was like, it was exactly what I needed because there was some sense of like something missing with just the walking. Like I wanted to give back. I wanted to like create something, you know? And like for the longest time I was like a romantic and sort of like, I was like, I don't know, the walking itself is like perfect and beautiful and doesn't matter if anybody ever knows about it. It's like I know about it, and that's like there's something beautiful and pure about that, you know? But there was this like, it was almost like a nihilistic thing about that where I don't know, it almost relates to like the thing about like being with people, you know? That's a good thing, and like making something is a good thing. It just feels good, and like interacting with the world, you know? Like my previous mentality was like this internal thing that I thought that's all that mattered, but you know, the graffiti added something where now I'm giving something to the world, you know, now I'm interacting, and it's just been fucking beautiful. It's given my life so much meaning and added so much to it.
I see the way you have slaps that say Marcher Arrant walked here.
Yeah.
Yo, if I knew your story and what you were about and that you truly do walk from these places and what you go through, and if I seen that slap in the middle of nowhere, I'd be like,
yes.
It adds so much value.
Yeah.
It adds so much value
Oh,
to
I
that
love that.
being there. I'll be like, dude, that's fucking incredible. I wonder what he did that day. I wonder where he went after. I wonder where he came from. I would just be thinking all these things. Like, what is he doing now? It's insane.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
It's a great name.
Oh, I love that. Cause
It's a great name, and the character is like a human being
Yeah.
holding a little flag.
Yeah.
Like, here he goes, here. And then
Yeah.
he walks away into like aimless walking. Like
Yeah.
I love your maps that you post on your page, and you can just see like I just find it literally hilarious. Like you'll just like if I were to speed it up like do this way like to make sure you like if someone was following you, even more from a bird's eye view, they'd be like, dude, this dude is crazy.
Yeah.
Like what is he doing? Like when you see an ant, they're just like, and they go this way, and then they're like, never mind, and then they come this way. You're like, what was the purpose of all of this, dude? It's crazy. And do you struggle with because you were just talking about it, do you struggle with nihilism at all? Like any type of nihilistic thinking?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I used to struggle with it so much. I'm doing better at it now because, like you were saying earlier, like I'm into Nietzsche, and like I really think that like the ultimate of everything is actually nihilistic. I don't know, maybe not, but
Sorry to interrupt you. Have you read *Sapiens*?
No.
If
what
you
is
read
that?
If you read that, you will seriously think that nothing matters at all.
Okay,
and not
I'm
only
not
will you
reading
like
that.
think it, but you'll like have it proven to you
Holy
through like sheer
shit.
historic facts.
Oh, dude, I need to not. I will kill myself if I read that, dude. Because I already have a propensity for that kind of thought. Oh, who wrote that? That sounds brutal.
It's a professor from I think he's from Iran, but I'm not sure.
Whoa.
He really knows about a lot of things. He covers Buddhism a lot. The last like three like two chapters are like heavy about Buddhism, but the whole rest of the book has nothing to do with any type of philosophy in terms of religion. And then the last one is because he's really into like Buddhism and stuff.
Dude, I'm scared of that book.
It's a really good one.
Shit. Yeah, I actually might read that.
It's definitely not about nihilism, but like if you analyze it, you'll like yeah, it's crazy.
I think that if you think enough about life, I mean, nothing matters in the end. I mean, that's just like the logical conclusion. But Nietzsche really helped me with that because like it's so funny. Like he's people that don't know anything about him think that he's a nihilist because he questions the idea of truth and, problematizes truth, but he's actually against nihilism. Like, his whole project was against nihilism. And, like, his whole thing is, like, self-creation, like, and the earth, he thinks about, like, life on the earth right now. Like, yeah, maybe ultimately nothing matters, but let's work with what we have and what we're doing now, and make a project of self-creation, and that helps me get away from nihilism, because I'm like, I just don't think about the grand scheme of things, but I'm like, okay, here's my little life. Let me make a little art project with my life, I mean, why not? There's, what else am I going to do, And so doing this stuff with the Marcher and doing my walks, it's like, to me, I'm making like a little story, a little mythology, and it's like, it's something to do with my time on the earth, why not? So, but I always struggle with it. I mean, Jesus, like, it's depressing as hell to think that we're not going to be remembered, like, none of this matters in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I always struggle with nihilism, like, always. But there's this really, one of my favorite books is Moby Dick. Yeah, one of the episodes I think you guys were talking about it. Was it Her? Yeah.
It's a rerun of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That book is insanely deep. It's insane. But chapter 23, they talk about Bulkington. He's like a really interesting character. It's like my favorite chapter. It's only like one page, but this guy Bulkington, so the narrator, he's in the dock or whatever, and like in comes a ship, and on that ship is Bulkington, this character, and he had been out to sea for like 3 years, and he gets, he comes on the board, comes on land and everything, does a little bit, and then he sets off again for like 3 more years. And this little chapter is like, the narrator is just like in total amazement, like, holy and it was like winter, I think, too. He's like, this guy was out to sea for 3 years, comes back and sets off again, and it's a sort of a metaphor, but like, there's this amazing lecture by Hubert Dreyfus. It's on YouTube. He's this professor, and it's a course. It's like an entire semester on Moby Dick, and he has this one of these lectures is on just that chapter and on Bulkington. And what he calls it, Bulkington like represents what he calls heroic nihilism. And so it's like this like idea of like going into the nothingness. Like, how far can you go into the nothingness and still survive, And that gives it a little bit of like meaning behind nihilism. So when I do struggle with it, I think about it in that, like, okay, I want to be strong. Like, okay, yeah, I'm struggling with there's no meaning, but let's see how far into this no meaning I can go and like still keep on, I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's all relative, like in the grand scheme of things, you say it doesn't matter, which is like pretty, I guess, true. But then like we're only even able to like analyze the grand scheme of things because we have like crazy human brains with rational like thinking and critical thinking and blah, 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 blah. But realistically, like, our grand scheme of things is like this short period of a fleeting moment of a life that we have right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, this is our totality. So it's like, we don't even have to observe it from an even grander scheme of things if we really don't want to, unless we want to like torture ourselves. Because like,
exactly,
like, we don't even get to live to see that grand scheme of things. So that's like saying like, damn, like, it's like almost like saying in some fucked up way, like, what's the point of having this MacBook in the grand scheme of things if in 700 years, assuming humanity is still existing, there's going to be a MacBook so much better than this. So why should I even have this now? But it's like, because I'm not going to be alive 700 years from now, and this is like my reality. Yes. If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm like completely destroying my like definite or like what I'm trying to get across, but like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like things like graffiti or you're walking or like any kind of hobbies that you're insanely passionate about that you do with or without money, and like your life is centered on like, all right, well, as long as I do this, this, and this, I can keep doing these two things, right? Like that gives it all meaning and purpose to you and yourself, which is all that you could even fucking ask for.
Exactly. That's all. Yeah.
Because there's definitely no like real, true, like purposeful reality. Because then at that point, like we would all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like your purposeful reality is like you're walking, but like I'm not a walker. Like I personally have thought like, damn, walking, like it's like the least effective form of transportation. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like working a 9 to 5, having like children, a wife? Like, what are your
Ooh.
thoughts on that type of life?
That's a good question. I've always resisted that because it really depressed me because like I do have this. I never grew up. I really never grew up. Like I never thought that I could live that kind of life and like not be suicidal. So yeah, I've just resisted that my entire life. But like, it's funny you say that like about kids and whatnot. Like, it kind of relates to the hermit thing and all this stuff. I'm like, I am kind of growing up now. I'm like, I see the beauty of having a kid. Like, that sounds really nice, you know? Like, helping someone else, like seeing them grow, like having a family. It sounds incredibly nice, and I could kind of like crave it in a way, in a funny way. And in terms of like the 9 to 5, like that oh man, it's so hard, like the regimented life and everything. But I totally get it, like in terms of like having stability. That's another thing I'm craving, like as I'm getting older. Like I gotta be honest with myself, like this shit is stressing me out, not having money. Like the older I get, it's stressing me the fuck out. So it's like I can't deny that, you know? Like, I need to figure out a way to find more stability or find a middle ground, you know? Like, I think the middle way, that's what I've been thinking a lot. Like, you know, there's probably smart ways where you can get a little bit of everything, you know? And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now. But, you know, with having a kid, I'd want to be, like, financially stable and stuff. And I don't ever see that happening, honestly. But I don't know. I think about the Marcher as like my kid sometimes. But I think it's all really meaningful, man. I used to be like such a freaking. I used to just hate the normal life, the quote unquote, you know, and I've really grown from that perspective. Like it's pretty immature, I think. And I think that like normal, quote unquote, normal people are like really amazing. Like I think to have a kid and to like be responsible in that way, it's like a minor miracle. It's crazy. I don't know how people do it, man. Like it takes so much work and like so much strength, and I super respect it.
Yeah, it's important to respect things that maybe you're not doing, or maybe you're not. It's important to like not speak on things that you don't even live or know about, if that makes sense. Like
Definitely.
Like I think it's so quick to hate on, especially as like people within the graffiti community and people within the skateboarding or hardcore punk or anything like that. It's so like easy and quick to point the finger at the normal man or woman or normal society and be like, fuck that, fuck that yuppie shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Poser yuppie shit. I'll fuck you up. Get the fuck out of my face. I'll write graffiti on your wall. You know what I mean? And it's like, it reminds me of this like quote, or this like story where like this one monk is like looking at some mud. And he's like, fuck mud, because mud is dirty and it's going to, fuck mud. And then Damo was like, you say fuck mud, but, like, this crazy lotus flower grows out of this mud, so how can you denounce mud? And then I think, like, if you can't denounce mud as being dirty, like, you can't say that mud is dirty, like, in absolute, then, like, who's to say you can say that, like, normal, quote-unquote, life is... How can you denounce that if you can't even like surely denounce mud? And not only that, but like clearly like our thoughts change so fast. Like what I think now and like the mood I'm in right now will 100% be different in about 4 hours. Like I might be furious on the side of the road having a mental breakdown in 4 hours. And like I can't even hold on to these things that like I swear define me. Like that I think. So it's like we're going to sit here and be like, if you have a kid and you work a 9 to 5, it's like, but maybe that's their fucking reality. And maybe they like that shit. What do you want? Everyone to be a graffiti writing vandal or something? Like, at that point, we'd be like, that's whack. Find your own shit. Yeah. And then, like, you can't, then, like, what is the rest, the quote unquote, like, imagined rest supposed to do for, like, our people to be happy?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's just like a circle of, like, insanity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. Dude, you articulated that so freaking well about like your mentality changing like 4 hours from now. That's like my daily struggle, and it's so hard to figure out what's
It's
real.
so
There's
hard.
no lasting
Yeah.
like I want.
Like sometimes I'm like, yo,
truth.
like my truth is official. Like this is official.
Yes,
I'm
I
gonna
want
write this
that.
down so I remember. Like
Want that.
I'll be like, all right, from now on, like 90% of my focus will be on this thing and 10% on 5% on this. Then like 3 days will pass. I didn't even live what I wrote, and then I'll be like,
Yes.
I don't even believe in that anymore. So
I do the same exact
I'll keep
thing,
like a little
dude.
journal, and I'll be like writing, and I'll like reread it, and I'll be like, it's either I'm a straight up hypocrite, or there's no possible way for me to like live what I say, because like I'm
Yes.
trying my best, but I just truly don't believe the things I wrote 3 months ago.
Dude, I do the same exact thing. That's fucking crazy. Dude. And it's really hard when you're doing like an alternative sort of lifestyle, because it's like you're going against the grain of like everybody else. So it's hard to like keep that meaning, especially doing graffiti, especially when you're older. It like sometimes I think, like just like you said, like the mood changes. Like sometimes I love what I'm doing so much. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And then sometimes I think I'm like the biggest loser that ever existed. And it's like, I just want one thing to be true, you know, and to like last in that. But I don't know. Now I guess I need to develop.
Do you have like points of reference that you come back to like gain strength, or no?
Yeah, I do. I have like, you know, the books, my favorite books, you know. And,
What are some of your favorite books?
So my favorite book, and which actually like is kind of the basis for my philosophy behind my graffiti, is this book called Erring. And it's an academic book of philosophy. It's a weird book. I don't recommend anyone reading it because it's it's academic. You know what I mean? It's very weird. It's like a deconstruction. I don't know if you heard of like deconstruction, the philosophical movement. It's a book of deconstruction, and it's addressing actually kind of what we're talking about, like that there is no, it's not so simplistic to say that there is no truth, because that'd be ridiculous and super simplistic, but it's like it's always changing constantly, and like that's kind of one of the main reasons I started walking in an artistic sense, because walking and wandering is like an expression of what's happening in my mind, you know, because I've always been like a believer. Like I was like a fundamentalist Christian for a while, like hardcore. But like when you keep thinking about things, it's like you can't, there's no solid truth. Like you read the Bible and there's like, you can't find one interpretation, you know what I mean? You're constantly going back and forth. Like, what does this passage mean? What is that? And like, you know, debating people. And I just became really frustrated with that whole thing. And like, and then, you know, I got into Buddhism, and it's just my whole life has been like going through these different ways of thinking, you know? So walking and wandering is like an artistic sense, is like expressing what's happening in my mind, you know what I mean? It's just like this freaking wandering. So anyways, that book is like all about that. He like deconstructs kind of, it's called Airing a Deconstructive Atheology. So it's like looking at religion or Western like Christianity, but it's like deconstructing it and saying like, hey, look, there's no like kind of reality to this, or there's no, it's basically a wandering philosophy. It's a philosophy of walking and wandering is what this book is about. So that's kind of like that's my favorite book. I take it with me on every single walk that I go on, and it's like pretty small book. It's by Mark C. Taylor. He's actually, last I heard, he was like the head of the religious studies department at Columbia. Actually, shit, that'd be cool to go try to see him. So yeah, that's like one of my favorite books. And Don Quixote is like one of my all-time favorite books. Have you read that?
No, but I know about, you know.
Do you know like the basic premise of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm Don Quixote, man. Because like in that, you know, Don Quixote, he grows up reading all these tales of knight-errants, you know, all these adventure books, you know, and he just keeps reading them and getting inspired by them until he goes fucking crazy, and like he goes off on his own adventure. And that's like exactly how I feel like my life is.
And I mean, you're not even wrong. Your life is pretty like book. Like you could write a book about your life, and it would be extremely interesting.
Yeah, and I think that one thing I want to thank you, by the way, but I resonate with him so much because he's like he's a silly character, you know, and like I have like all these heroes, you know, and like I feel like I don't live up to like my heroes, you know. I feel like I'm a silly version of them, but like I'm fine with that because like Don Quixote is a ridiculous character, but like in the end he kind of created his own adventure that was actually pretty cool, even though it was like silly. But like I grew up reading like I read like King Arthur and you know, stories about that, like the Once and Future King and everything. And you know, I was really in love with like Disney's Robin Hood.
Okay.
It's like one of my all-time favorite movies, and Goonies and Stand By Me and all this stuff. And you know, when I got into graffiti, like, dude, I'm like first and foremost a fan of graffiti. Like I've read every single graffiti book. Like I've read T-Kid's book, I've read Fuzz One's book, Dondi's, like I've read everything. I've listened to every single podcast, you know, and like how Don Quixote read like the Tales of the Knights. Like I kind of read Tales of Graffiti writers and like freight train riders, you know what I mean? And I just read them so much and was so into them that eventually I went on my own adventures. And yeah. So yeah, what else?
It's important, yeah, to have those points of reference that can give you strength.
That's what you said, yeah. It's so important. And another one is Henry Miller. Like Henry Miller is like one of my fucking favorite authors of all time. He has this book, like The Tropic of Capricorn, The Tropic of Cancer. Like they're both like related to his actual life, and like, but one of them, I can't remember which one is which, but he like moved to Paris, and he was like living kind of homeless in Paris, and just like meeting all these characters. He was like super in love with people and personalities and whatnot. And but he has this like philosophy of art, you know, and it's super important for me to go back to these people because I have chosen a sort of life that's different from the norm. And the norm is just like it's our internal dialogue. We can't help that that's the case. I mean, we're just bombarded with it. So if you're choosing to do something different, you kind of need these allies and these books to like, they're your friends. And you know, so yeah, I go back to them often, you know. Yeah.
What do you think you need in this life to be happy?
Ooh.
You specifically, not just not in general.
Yeah. Man. What I really want is I want to be healthy. I want to have I'm far from it, but I want to work towards mental health, and like we were talking about, like the relationships. I want to be there for people. Like one thing I'm lacking is that, like, it's funny, like I always wanted to be a kid forever, you know, and I fucking got it actually, but like now I realize it was not exactly what I wanted because I don't know, I always have people helping me and stuff, and that's amazing, but like I want to be the person that helps people, like eventually, you know. I want to be the person that's like strong and like overflowing and like to help people, you know. So I want to help people. I want to have some kind of meaning in that, you know. I'm trying to focus that with my art because like I can inspire people and like give people strength and courage, and like definitely want to help people in some way, you know, in whatever way I can. And when I have healthy relationships, and I really want some kind of like stability of some sense. Like I want to take care of myself, like which basically, if I had health insurance, like I think that's all that, you know, if I just had health insurance and like, I don't even necessarily need like a place to stay, but a little bit of stability, you know, and like, I want to get, like I teach English as a job, and I want to like get better at that. I'd like to be a master at my crafts, you know, so I want to get better at graffiti, get better at English teaching, and save a little bit of money, have a little bit of stability, take care of people, you know, give to people I meet, and I think that would make me happy.
That's essentially what you just said is like a little bit of self-preservation and then a little bit of giving back to others around you.
Mm-hmm.
And you listed graffiti, you listed better at this, get better at that, get better at teaching English. Then that's like honestly sick, because a lot of people, I feel like at a certain age might be like, I just want to retire and then do this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a bunch of things, and that's like what keeps people alive and kicking, and having a bunch of goals, and essentially not having what you want, because then you have to keep it pushing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Totally.
it's like it's like the balance. So
Yeah.
dude, I want to say thank you for like speaking on the show and walking
Hell
your
yeah.
ass over here, and like, I really appreciate it. I
Yeah.
loved this. It was amazing from start to
Dude,
finish, bro.
I'm so happy, man. I'm so
Yeah.
fucking grateful, dude. Like,
No, this is one of my honestly like favorite conversations to like be a part of.
Oh shit, dude.
No, I wanted to say that like what you have going on with like your Marcher Arrant thing and like your whole art form, which is like your life essentially. I think if you channel it correctly, you can make like what you're saying, like financial stability, or like you can do
Yeah.
these things. I think you have an amazing thing going, man. You should just
Thank you, man.
find like the right connections in a way, and like I don't know, it's you have
Yeah.
something so rare that like not a lot of people step foot in, and you can make something out of it in a world where the abnormal is amazing nowadays. You know what I mean? The average person wants to know about this, so
Yeah.
I think you have something strong.
I appreciate it, man, so much. That's what I'm working towards, man. Like, it used to be always this private thing, and, I started making art, and, like, I want the whole thing, every part of my life to be, like, artistic and, like, relate to each other. And, I walk, and then I make art, and then that gives me money to keep walking, and then I'm helping people, and I appreciate that, man. I feel like I'm on the road towards that, and I appreciate that.
I went on your website and I seen you have a shop, but everything's sold out. You should put more shit on, man.
Yeah,
dude.
Hell yeah.
I would cop something, like,
Thanks, man.
definitely.
Yeah, I know. I need to get on that.
Yeah.
Got some pins coming soon, man. I'm pretty
Sick,
stoked
dude.
about that.
Yo, thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
man.
thank you guys, dude. It's been such an honor. Like, I'm such a fan. It's like
We're a fan
it's
of
a
you,
trip.
man.
Oh man.
Peace.
Peace, man.